Hi everyone, it's Miriam with a Y. I've had this acrylic skin for a while, and I thought we could use it for a quick, easy, and sparkly, of course, Christmas ornament. Now, for my surface, I'm going to use a wooden disc. This is the kind that you can usually find at your local craft store, but I'll put links for it and some others in the description box, along with everything else that I use today. Now, you can also make this ornament on pre-cut ornament shapes, and I'll put a couple of links for things like this in the description box as well. But what you can also use that you may already have in the house is the cardboard from a cereal box. Just glue two pieces back to back or use double stick tape and it will be plenty stiff enough, even if you end up wanting to add resin later. Just trace around a circular object in your house like a jar or, I don't know, a can of tuna, cut it out and you're good to go. For this project, we'll use the wooden disc, or if you prefer, a different shape, or your cardboard cutout, the acrylic skin, some craft paint that coordinates with the skin, and maybe one that adds some sparkle, some thin double-sided tape. I get mine from Elizabeth Craft Designs because it's super strong. My favorite glitter, also by Elizabeth Craft Designs, in colors that coordinate with the acrylic skin. A paintbrush or two, a strong glue and some craft wire to make our loop to hang our ornament from. I'm using 5-minute epoxy, but you can use something like 𝙎𝙬𝙍𝙍 too. Or you might choose to drill a hole to attach your string. That's up to you. And for sealing the ornament when you're done, you can use either a varnish, a spray-on or a paint-on, is up to you. Or for a glass-like finish, you can use resin. Again, that's up to you too. The project doesn't require resin. It doesn't really require the varnish either. It's just that it'll give your paint a nice shine and it'll also protect it. Alrighty, let's make an ornament. Before starting out, I made a sketch of what I'm aiming for. A bluish background, in my case, a strip of the acrylic skin, and then 4 sparkly bands of glitter, 2 up here and 2 down here. Now the first thing I'm going to do for myself is trace around my ornament shape 2 times. One of these templates I'll cut out. The one that I've cut out, I'm going to fold perfectly in half. And I really want to be as precise about this as I can be. Now that I have this nice and folded, all I have to do is lay this down, really line it up nicely against the edge that I didn't cut out, and then just draw a line down along the fold. And now I'm able to find the midline of the one that's my template. Now, if you'll remember from our sketch, I want an area of skin roughly this wide. So, I mean, it can be a little narrower or a little wider. That part's not that important. So, in order to do that and to get it sort of evenly distributed on both halves, what I'm going to do is use my ruler, or if you have a nail file, that can work. Something that's about half the width of the skin strip that you want. And then I'm just going to rest that against the line here. Draw myself a line on the other side. And do the same thing here. And then now I know that this strip is nicely centered. So what I'm going to do now is cut this area out. And when you're done, this is what you should be left with. Something that looks like this. And what I'm going to use this for is to move this around my skin to determine what part do I want to use as the strip for my ornament. I kind of like these little waves. I don't know that I want to go this dark, so I'm kind of leaning toward this area. But this area is kind of pretty too. This could take a while. So I went with this area over here. I'm hoping you can see the faint pencil line that I drew myself. And I'm going to cut as perfectly straight along these two edges as I possibly can. And I'm going to cut outside, well outside of this curve, on, well, both curves, because I want my strip to be a little longer than it needs to be, because better longer than shorter. So here is my strip. I've left myself here's the line. I've left myself quite a bit of extra on both ends. Now I was going to peel this skin off of the freezer paper that it was poured on, but while I was cutting, I realized that it's a little brittle because it's kind of really dry and probably thin. So I'm going to leave it attached to the freezer paper. That's not going to hurt it. Yeah. Now I know what my center strip looks like. Our next step is to paint our disc. So let's do that. My first step is to paint the back, because even though I don't know that I'll decorate the back, it might show. So I at least wanted to have a color. I got lucky and I have a metallic paint that's pretty much one of the colors in the pour on my acrylic skin, so I can use that. So I'll paint the back and the edge in this color. And for maximum blingage, yeah, that's a word, right? I'm sure it's a word. No, not really. But seriously, for extra sparkle, you can even layer on some of this on top of your metallic, which is what I'm gonna do. This will dry pretty much clear, at least your first coat will. Subsequent coats will start to get milky, but the first one's relatively clear, but it's got iridescent glitter in it. So it kind of sparkles even more than the metallic. So it's a Christmas ornament. No reason not to go for broke. And this is it dry. It's super pretty. Now, the glamour dust comes in other colors. If you want a lot of colors, that's awesome. But if you're only going to buy one bottle, I would recommend getting the ice crystal, because it's clear and lets you make any color you want glistening. Just paint your base color and then apply this on top. With the back of the ornament all pretty and sparkly, let's do the front. We're going to start off by making the same 3 lines we made on our earlier paper template. Using the cutout that we folded in half, we're going to find the midline of this wooden disc. And just like before, use the ruler or a nail file or jumbo popsicle stick, whatever you have, to make a parallel line on either side of the midline. Next, put a piece of painter's tape along one of those outer lines. But make sure it covers up the inner area where your skin would go, not the outer area. And you really only need to do this on one side. You can do it on both, but you really don't need to. Now decide what color you'd like to paint your background. The color I'm after is a mix of two DecoArt Americana colors, ocean blue and turquoise blue. So I'm mixing those up and painting my background. Notice that I'm not bothering to paint much past the outer line because that area is going to get covered up with our skin. Okay, I think it looks good. Let's add a little sparkle to this blue too. And when that's all done, we can pull off the tape, giving us one perfectly straight edge. Okay, I couldn't help my glitter-loving self. I snuck an extra coat of glamour dust. I won't tell if you do too. And if you're super impatient like me, you can use a heat gun to speed up the drying. Look how super pretty that is. Now, to affix our acrylic skin, we can use double-sided tape. But I'm actually going to recommend using PVA glue, plain old white school glue, because it will let you make adjustments once the skin is down. The tape, however, would most likely not. It's got a pretty heavy-duty grip. So if you'd rather not have to worry about being perfect the first time around, do this glue method. Spreading a thin layer of glue to cover the entire surface area for the skin. Then we'll line up one edge of the skin with that perfectly straight line made by the painter's tape earlier. Because the glue is going to take a bit of time to dry, we can slide the skin around to get it just right. And I'm looking for our original pencil lines on the curves as guidelines, and then pressing this into place. Now, we don't need to worry if a little glue squeezes out when we're pressing this down, because any of that will get covered up in the next step. And then just cover this up with something heavy for 15-20 minutes, and we'll be good. With the skin secure, it's time to trim off the ends. You can use scissors if they can get right up to the edge, or an X-Acto, which is what I like to use. I don't move the blade when I do this, but instead I turn the ornament against it for a smoother cut. Now, the one thing I touched up but forgot to film completely was I used a Sharpie to cover up the white edges of the cut skin and the freezer paper, just so that the edges would blend into the edge of the disc better. If you're going to be varnishing your piece instead of adding resin, do that at this stage. I've found that when I spray varnish on glitter, sometimes it dulls the glistening effect a bit, unless I'm super careful and I do very thin coats one at a time. Since the glitter is not going to need sealing, you can just varnish now instead. And then once your varnish is all dry, pick up with this step. Now let's add some double-sided adhesive for our glitter bands. I'm placing the first strip along the edge of the skin, overlapping it just a hair, and then pressing it firmly into place. Then repeat on the other side. For my next band of color, I'm positioning my tape parallel to the first piece and leaving a little bit of a gap between the two. Now that's just a design choice. You may choose to do it differently and butt the two pieces up right against each other. Any way will work just fine. And then again, repeat. Like before, trim off these ends. Now we're ready for glitter. Yay! By the way, I'm working on a coffee filter because they're static free. And that's a tip I learned from Elizabeth Craft Designs. I'm going to be adding my teal glitter to the innermost bands. So I'm exposing the double-sided adhesive now. And now I'm just pouring the glitter right onto the tape. This glitter is so fine that it's going to be held perfectly in place by the adhesive. I'm pressing down just a bit, pouring off the excess, and now I'm burnishing the glitter down. It makes it even sparklier and also really gets it to adhere as well as possible to the tape. I'm brushing off the excess with a mop brush and now returning the excess to its jar. Now I'm repeating the same steps with my silver glitter on the outer bands. Pour, remove excess, burnish, brush off. Oh my gosh, I'm a teeny bit in love with this. Oh my gosh, I'm in glitter heaven. I know I'm a geek, but really, how pretty is this? How pretty is this? Now, one of the things I just love about working with this adhesive for adding glitter is that I can now add resin immediately. I have no glue that I have to wait for drying first. This is good to go. So let's do that. To prep for our resin, I taped up the sides to form a dam that will contain the resin on top. Make sure that the tape is well stuck and gap free. You don't want any leaks. You can also just choose to let the resin fall over the side, but I'm going to use this opportunity to show you more about taping. After mixing my resin and hardener for 3 minutes, I let it sit for a few minutes to release some of the bubbles. And now I'm ready to pour. It's kind of silly how much I always love this step. After letting the resin flow to the entire edge of the ornament, I'm checking for bubbles along that edge. I want to dislodge them now so that they'll pop easily on their own or with a heat gun or torch. Once I'm confident that we're bubble free, I'm going to cover my piece and let it start to really set up so that when I remove the tape, the resin is soft enough to bounce back, but too near cured to fall over the edge. Now, how do I know the magic amount of time to wait? Well, it's going to be well over an hour or 2 even, but there's no magic number, and here's why. Every resin is different. Every studio environment is different. Yours might be warmer than mine, colder than mine. What you added to your resin will differ and affect the time. Did you heat your resin a lot with a heat gun or a torch? What I do is leave a bit of resin in a cup, about the thickness of my pour. And I want to make sure that the resin in the cup has had everything done to it just like the resin on the piece. If I heated the resin on the piece, I want to make sure I heated the resin in the cup so that those two resins are curing at the same rate. I also leave a little stick in the cup, and then I check the cup periodically. I don't want to disturb my piece, so I mess with the cup. I don't want the resin in it to move easily or correct itself this quickly when I disturb it. This is way too runny. But it's perfect if your goal is to have the resin pour softly over your edge. This is definitely getting there. And I'm pulling taffy-like strings, but the resin in the cup still looks a little smooth after I do that. It's not spiky or messed up looking enough. Okay, now this is just right. This is perfect. So now I know I can pull off my tape. Now, when I pull off my tape, I pull upwards, and the resin is going to get stretched out beyond the edge of the piece. It's gonna freak you out. Leave it alone. It will retract. It will look horrible at first. I promise you it will pull back. Have faith, cover it back up, walk away. And the next day, this will be your reward. Nice, rounded edges that didn't drip over the side. Now, it's occurred to me looking at this that this could also make a pretty cool coaster. So you might plan that when you're designing your piece. Let's make it into an ornament. One of your options for making it something you can hang is to drill a hole right at the top and then put your hanger through the hole. But you might not want to do that. So let me teach you how to make a very simple wire hanger. You can use what I'm going to use, which is aluminum wire. Really, you can use any wire. The reason I tend to like aluminum wire is it never tarnishes or rusts or changes color. It stays nice and shiny all the time. But you can also use any craft wire you have, or you might even want to opt for wire that has a colored finish. Now, I'm going to cut myself a piece about 2.5 3 inches long. 2.5 is probably enough. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is just grab a regular pen, and I'm going to bend the wire in half. If you have round nose pliers, they're ideal for this next step, but if you don't, assuming most people have tweezers, let's do it with tweezers. At the end of my wire, I'm going to bend a little section down so that I have something like this. And I'm going to do it on the other side as well. Now I'm going to grab the little end that I just bent, and I'm going to turn a wire so that now I have this. And again, we're going to do it on the other side. So now we've got this. Your next revolution you can probably do with your fingers, but if not, you can use your tweezers. And I'm making one more turn on both sides. Now, the reason that I'm doing this is to give the wire ends enough surface area for the glue to hold on to. If I just made the U and then glued the ends of the U down, it could literally slide out of the glue eventually. Or if we put glue on the ends of both of this, there is enough holding on now. So that's the point of making these little spirals. Now decide how you want your ornament to hang. Is this your top? Is this your top? I'm going with this. I now want to find the middle. I can use my cutout again to do that, or I can just eyeball it too. I'm good with that. I'm going to take that little mark and send it over to the back. You can use pretty much any glue that you think is strong enough. I'm a fan of 5-minute epoxy. This is just like resin. It's 2 parts mixed together, and once they're mixed, the curing begins. And this is our ornament hook. Nice and secure. Now you can use this method to add a hook to a ceramic tile or a thin piece of wood, a canvas panel, anything that's too thin or hard to take screws. I do it this way for strength and a little visual interest. Sometimes I get a bit more creative with the wire. If you sell your work or you're giving the piece as a gift, it's just a little extra handcrafted attention to detail. If you like this project, give it a thumbs up and tell me in the comments. I love to hear from you. All of the materials I used and more are now in a new way I have for you to easily find what you need. Go to kit.com/miriamsnature/Christmas-ornament. Click on the picture and it will take you right to the listing on the appropriate website, whether it's Amazon, eBay, or wherever I bought the item. Let me know in the comments if you find this helpful. If you do, I'll have a kit like this for every video from now on. If you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. Yeah, right now. Just don't even wait any longer. Okay, now if you'd like to see more videos and make them possible, or to contribute as a thank you, please see the description box below the video for some options, including becoming a patron of mine on Patreon. I'd love to do this channel full time. In other words, more videos way more often. But I can't do that without you. Sharing the video helps the channel too, as does watching as much of the entire videos as you can. I think I have the best viewers out there, and I'm super grateful for each one of you. Thank you for watching. Let your creative nature shine. Happy, happy holidays to all of you and to all of yours. See you next time. Bye now.